It's time to listen to BHR with your hosts, Patrick and Paul.
One thing, we actually haven't really discussed it a lot, but it plays a vital role in all of our lives. What do you think about police officers? I mean, there's been a lot of media for and against them. So what's your opinion, Patrick, on police officers?
I mean, if you would have asked me this question, before all of everything that's been going on with media, as far as, good, bad police officers, everything, I would have said they're great. Yeah. And to an extent, I still believe that. Mm-hmm. Police are necessary, but I think that just like anything, there's the corruption is taking over, not taking over, the industry in general, but as far as media presents it. Yeah. And that is the big focus, and I think that it's giving police officers a bad name. And
it kind of goes to that idea of clickbait material. Mm-hmm. It gains more attention when you say bad police officer has shot someone. It doesn't gain as much attention when it says officer apprehends a criminal, And so that clickbait and online media really starts to shift what we're being told about police officers. One thing that people tend to overlook is that they're human. They're people just like us. And being human and having a large group of people, there's going to be a couple of bad ones that misrepresent the group as a whole.
And you're going to have that with every single group. Yeah. But it's just that cherry-picking mentality to get headlines. You see very few headlines of all the police officers that, go out of their way to do great things. Mm-hmm. There was a video on YouTube, I think, a cop that was pulling over people and, giving them Christmas gifts, in a poor neighborhood and stuff like that. But that stuff doesn't get the attention. It's the police officer shot some dude.
Right. Well, and so to kind of contrast the concept, or to contrast the topic of police officers, there's also the Black Lives Matter movement. And the big difference that I noticed there is that you don't have leaders. So there's been leaders of the Black Lives movement that have called for hits on police officers. You haven't seen leaders of police officers calling for hits on black people.
Not defending that by any means, but because of the realm of you're a police officer, you're held to a higher standard, and then a citizen doing it, it doesn't make it okay, but that's why you don't see the same outrage.
Right, yeah. And, I mean, it's so... Another kind of common thing that I find is people that are very, very anti-police officer or anti-law, they tend to have some type of criminal activity in their past, and that they feel like they've been wronged, although really what has happened is certain aspect of justice has been served. Like if you are a criminal stealing, there's no reason that's good enough for you to be stealing and breaking into people's houses. That is against the law. You are impeding on somebody else's rights. It's the police officer's job to enforce those laws and arrest you. It is irrelevant of why you're doing that. It is they're upholding the law.
And this might spawn an argument for another day. I agree with that, but to an extent, in certain situations, those people are right. I mean, if you go to prison for a minor crime, mm-hmm. your whole life does get ruined. Mm-hmm. Especially if you go to prison for a nonviolent crime and you go in there with, violent criminals, murderers, fucking rapists, everything. Yeah. Not only from being in that atmosphere does it change you, mm-hmm. but when you get out, a lot of places won't hire felons. It does ruin your whole life. So I understand that whole aspect of feeling wronged. Right. But then there are those, situations like you brought up where you did something wrong. Mm-hmm. You have to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to take responsibility for your own actions. To blame the system, the
system is fucked.
But your crime was that of a felony, which those are not, you have misdemeanors and you have felonies. So if you are going to prison on a felony, there's a reason usually why it is a felony. If you have enough drugs on you to be considered, for that to be considered distribution, it's you have to take on that self-responsibility and be like, you know what, that was probably a bad idea that I was in possession of that much narcotics.
But, absolutely. Yeah. But do you agree that they need to be in the same, location as violent criminals?
I feel like that's not necessarily a good thing, right? But when you consider that those drugs that they're selling, if somebody's holding...
There is violence that does end up getting associated with it somewhere down the line.
Exactly. It might not be... It's in a sense, it's kind of a ripple effect, right? You might not be a non-violent person, but you might be selling drugs to a violent person. Even if those drugs aren't associated with violence, or if you're selling enough of those drugs to a person, then they're going on and redistributing them, and it's a vicious cycle. So a non-violent crime, it's how far out on the spider web do you go before you start to hit violence associated with it. And so that's why, in a sense, like, they are felonies, right? My biggest issue is that people tend to overlook the fact that police officers are humans. And you know what? There might be some laws that they don't agree with, but it is their job, it is their responsibility to enforce these laws. And they're going to continue to do that as long as they wear that shield. So that's where it really bothers me that this younger generation, I see it more and more and growing, that they don't like police officers. And it's like, why not? What, you have media telling you that they're bad, and you have certain people in your own group that aren't taking responsibility and saying, hey, yeah, no, I committed a crime, and it's my fault that this is happening to me.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to, self-responsibility. But I can even, when I was a kid, and I didn't get into a lot of trouble or anything, but, I did shit that I wasn't supposed to be doing.
Right.
I didn't really care to be around the police either.
Right.
And I do remember seeing, growing up, like, TV shows and stuff, just like those groups of people that are like, no, the police are bad, stay away. Like, and I think this is something that, it's not recent. It's been going on for years, and this is just an accumulation of all of that.
Right. And the other part, for the most part, these police officers are living in the communities that they're policing, and I just feel bad for them because all these people see are the shield, the badge, shield, and gun. They don't actually see the human behind these things. It goes beyond race. It goes beyond religion. Anything else. Like, these people are there. Overall, they're there to protect you. Mm-hmm. Recently, I saw an argument. I think it's for the bringing in refugees, where it says, don't judge don't judge the whole group by the actions of a few. And they compare and contrast that with the refugees. I have a really big issue there because, first off, police officers here in the United States are United States citizens. Second, refugees coming over, yeah, you know what? There is some good people. I'll admit that. There's some good people that are refugees that are going through a very hard time. Is it our responsibility as the United States to take on these refugees? No. There's plenty of countries in that area that are not accepting refugees, and it's kind of getting outflown, like it's getting outsourced to other areas. So, not only that though, but let's compare and contrast the two groups. You have refugees from the Middle East, and you have police officers. Okay. The actions of a few. Okay. Now, I'm not condoning the bad police officers that have shot people that where it's not justified. Where it's not justified. But I haven't seen a group of 10 police officers kill thousands of people. What I have seen is a group of 10 people from the Middle East kill thousands of people. And that's why there is a separation. These two groups cannot be compared when you have a group of a very small, very, very small minority that will take actions that will affect thousands of lives. When in police officers, these police officers are not taking actions that affect thousands and thousands of lives. They're trying to protect their own community. Some of them are misled and have the wrong belief system about their own badge and shield, but the overwhelming majority of them don't believe that. Like, they don't act that way.
Well, I'm curious to see your opinion on this, but I'm all for police officers wearing cameras when they're on duty. I think that if you do that, it is way easier to analyze a situation and make sure that police officer was doing what they were supposed to do. And I also feel like, in most cases, if a police officer knows that they have a camera on them, they're going to be more likely to follow follow suit with what they should be doing while wearing that badge.
So I do have a really, I have a really interesting opinion on this. I do not support the idea of police officers wearing cameras for multiple reasons.
Okay.
So first off, whenever a police officer comes to your house, say you and your wife got into a dispute and you had a fight, and a police officer comes over, everything that you say to that police officer and your wife says to that police officer, for the most part, they have to record, document, and that's public record. When a police officer is wearing a camera, now when they come into your house and they're looking around your house, everything inside of your house is then public record based off of this camera. So your right to privacy, in a sense, really goes away because that video of maybe a domestic, maybe it might have just been a one-time argument.
Yeah, and then they see something in your house and they have the right to.
Well, no, but not only that, but like I would have access to that. Joe Schmo down to the corner would have access to that. It's public record. It's documentation of a crime scene or a potential crime scene. Like,
yeah, but if it's filed as evidence, is the public allowed to just go in there and look at evidence?
So any of the police officers' activities, like their day-to-day routines, I believe you can actually go down to the courthouse to a certain level and gain access to it.
Okay, but that falls under both categories because if there is an investigation after, this dispute or even just the police being there, that could be filed as evidence and necessarily wouldn't be something anybody could just walk in there and look at.
It's still public. So, well, even evidence itself, like when it's brought to court, that's public record. Courts are public record. For the most part, what the police officers are doing is public record. So when you put a camera on them and they go into your private property, that's public record then. So now you have the potential of other criminals where they could go and look into the layout of your house, what type of objects that you are possessing, and then they can basically scope out what you own prior to ever coming near your house.
Do you think that there's a way to legislate a compromise there where it either isn't public record or, there's a statute of limitations as far as, where they can be with the camera or...
See, and so then it just kind of turns into a huge mess, in my opinion, a legal chaos, because then you're in a sense still censoring what's public record, and so that's why I for the most part I'm not in agreement to police officers wearing cameras. Yeah. The other reason is that they shouldn't, in times of like pure adrenaline, right? When things are going
you're not going to be thinking about
crazy,
the camera regardless.
You're not going to be thinking about the camera regardless, And if you are thinking about that, like, hey, somebody's watching me, you might not, that response time, you might not be able to make the right call if you are considering, hey, I'm being watched. Because if somebody's making a quick action and you don't know if they're pulling out a gun, the last thing you should be thinking about is that I have a camera. Because that could mean your life. Like, if you personally, right, somebody is about to pull a gun on you, but you don't know if they're going to pull a gun on you.
Well, yeah, but I get what you're saying because,
right.
Say you're in, a police officer has you stopped and you reach into your pocket and they don't ask you for your wallet or anything like that. Yes, it looks like you're pulling a weapon.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that could mean a police officer's life.
But I feel like if that's on camera that you're making this quick movement, it's still going to show that the police officer was in the right.
But if it makes him hesitate and it costs him his life, is having that camera worth it on that police officer?
No.
So that's why that's my second main, staple on why cameras shouldn't be necessary for police officers. It adds another level of danger for them because it's like they might not be able to make the right moves fast enough. And that's I mean,
well, I guess my argument to that would be every police car has a camera in the front.
Right, exactly. So, they're already there.
So, do you think that camera adds more danger to them?
Not at all. No,
because it's still like, say if they pull, mainly just in a traffic stop or if they pull up something, they're still being filmed.
Right.
You just don't. You still see most of the same stuff.
Right.
But you might not.
Right.
That's where I'm for the camera on the police officer because you're going to see what he sees.
See, so the big difference there is like, I could only assume as a police officer that when it is in your car that you're not as steadily aware of it. When it's on the lapel of your shirt, you are steadily aware that your actions are being watched in a way. So that's why there is a separation between video cameras on the vehicles and the video camera on the police officer himself.
I think initially, yes, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But I think you would become complacent to the camera being there. You already have, all of your stuff on you. You have your uniform and everything. I think eventually it would just become a day-to-day thing, and I don't think it would be on your mind. I think it would be a similar situation to being in the car.
Yeah, maybe. Unless one of your fellow police officers was like, say that scenario that I was just talking about runs through, and the person doesn't have a weapon. Well, now the police officer could potentially have criminal charges pressed against him. Do you think that's right? Like,
no, absolutely not.
Right.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at with that is the camera's going to show that, you can make the argument that this person, made the wrong action.
Yeah.
Because that's all they're going to have for an argument, in the courtroom regardless. It's just now it's documented like this person did something they weren't supposed to do.
Right.
And I made, the judgment call that I had to do to protect my life.
Yeah.
And potentially protect the lives of anyone, in that area.
Here's another aspect on it is this is going to increase the costs to these police departments. Where is that money going to come from? Is it going to come from the national government? Are they going to send money down to the police stations? Because right now I see a system that is working. I do not see a system that is failing the people of the United States.
No, and I guess you are making me backtrack a little on this because it goes to that the reason I like the cameras is to protect, all of the police officers, but the reason the cameras are even an option are because of the few bad cops.
Right.
So I do agree with you. I don't think that the system by any means is failing. I'm just trying to think of a way to make sure that they can all be protected, I guess.
Right. And so really what I would recommend is that we need to take that money that we would go towards cameras to the proper training of police officers to have it to increase their training.
So do you mean longer academy time or just reoccurring training?
I would say even for the initial, your initial academy, where not necessarily a longer one, but maybe improving certain aspects of the academy's training. Right?
Well, and I know you and I have talked about police academy on our own.
Right.
They try to put you in as stressful situations as they can to see if you can even handle it, and maybe some of that money could be funneled towards that specific aspect.
Right.
Of creating even better situations as far as to really see, because even though you're put in this stressful situation, when it comes down to being out in the field, your adrenaline levels are going to be higher.
Right. Yep. The other thing that I would personally recommend is taking that money, because we're talking millions of dollars to going towards putting cameras on police officers, millions and millions and millions of dollars across the United States, is taking that money and increasing. People are going to find me kind of nuts, but increasing the pay of police officers.
I think that they do deserve more pay. You're working 12-hour shifts, and I guess I don't know what the pay of police officers is, but I do know that it's
relatively low.
It's lower than it should be.
Yeah.
If you're risking your life, not necessarily every day. It depends where you are. I mean, if you're in a bigger city, obviously you are risking your life almost every day.
Right.
But when you're in a place here that's smaller, not always.
Right.
But if you're in a job where at any point you could be risking your life, or you might not come home tomorrow, you should be getting paid more.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And so with that increase in pay, what I would think what would happen is that you would see an increase in people wanting to be a police officer. So you'll have more people, and with the proper training and with the proper identification, where in a sense it's almost like vetting for police officers, you'll have a larger source that you can pull from, and then you can pull better people from it.
Yeah. As soon as you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind is to see maybe corruption go down a little bit, because if you raise the pay, people are going to be less likely to be like, oh, I need more money.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And I mean, it really is an important topic for everybody to kind of discuss and to kind of put in their opinion, as long as you can back up what you're talking about. My biggest issue is that we are trying to take a very, very few murders that have went on, and I'll even say that they are murders, certain murders by police officers on citizens, right?
Yes.
We're taking those very small. When you look at the overall picture, they're still doing their job right. the big picture, the people that are doing it all, it's all going through quite fluid, you know.
Well, and I think that a lot of those situations, and I could be wrong here because I've never been in that situation, is it's not that the police are, it's not that they want to, shoot these people.
Right.
It's that they are put in that intense situation, and maybe, they don't handle the adrenaline appropriately, and they make a judgment call, and they might not make the right one, and that,
Yeah. Well, and I'll even kind of make it more of a point to say, like, with back to the whole looking at the big picture, that all of the police officers, when you look at, there's going to be a select few of them that are doing this for the wrong reasons. I mean, like, the big things, like, first off, look at the badge. The badge itself is a shield. They are there to protect and serve. Those are their two main priorities. Like, if you see a police officer on the corner, you should have no issues going up to them and talking to them about something, anything, really. Any type of issue. They're there to protect and serve. And people need to kind of shed that belief that these police officers are dangerous and that their only purpose is to put you in jail. Really, they are servants of the community. And that to my understanding, there's a lot of police officers that are completely aware of that. Like, every day when they are putting on their vests and they're putting on their gear, they are servants of the community, and they are putting their lives in line, like what you're saying. And you don't know at the beginning of the day what type of thing that you're going to be coming across.
Yeah, you may do traffic stops all day, or you may end up in a freaking shootout with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, kind of routing it back again to increasing their pay is like when you leave your house in the morning and you, like, when you, as a normal person, you say goodbye to your wife, you're pretty assured that you're going to be able to see her later that day. And as a police officer, there's still a better chance that you're not going to have that capability.
I mean, obviously, with any person, whether you're working at Subway or you're a police officer, there's always that chance you're not going to come home.
Right.
But it's definitely a higher for a police officer.
Yeah. And I'm just I suppose that is one pro to Donald Trump being all over the media, is that we don't see as much of this anti-police officer news coming out. So in a sense, like, things have gotten better because there's not this giant microscope hovering over every single police officer.
I'll have to ask you to elaborate on that, because I guess, what does Trump being in office have to do with us not seeing this as much?
Because Trump is better news right now. He's the best.
So it's not that you're not saying that he's the one.
No, no.
It's because of,
it's the media. The media
choosing to report on him over this.
More people are going to be clicking on anything that Trump says than any type of wrongdoing right now by police officers. It is the ultimate clickbait. It is the political realm right now.
Yeah. I was really surprised because there was that story recently about that off-duty police officer in California.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where a kid was walking by and said something to, I think it was his daughter or some girl, or, and then, the officer, I think he went a little overboard, and I think that's part of the reason the situation escalated is,
right,
grabbing this kid, and there was a group of kids with him, and they all kind of surrounded him, so he pulled out his gun.
Right.
And most of the kids took off, but then he still had his gun in his hand, and he was trying to pull this kid over a bush, and his gun went off. Luckily, nobody was injured.
Right.
But that does not help the argument.
Right. No, and I'll even criticize there were certain things that he should have done that he didn't. My understanding is that this kid there was a young girl that was crossing his yard, and he told that young girl, something. He said something to this young girl, and this young boy then said, don't talk to her that way, and said something about, I'm going to kill you. Well, he backtracked and said, I'm going to sue you. There's people are having issues with what he said at that time.
Yeah, because all the recordings that have surfaced, there's nothing in there about what he says.
Right. And so then the police officer grabs him, or the off-duty officer grabs him and is holding him. My personal opinion on an error that he made is that he should have kept on repeating that he is a police officer. He should have made it overwhelmingly known that he is an off-duty police officer as he's trying to hold this kid, right? That to me, that's his only, that's one of two errors. The second one is that how he pulled out his gun, kind of going into that, like it just looks that where he had it. I mean, it was very. I mean, it was very weird, the whole thing, and not to mention the guy, the police officer did look like that one. What's that popular TV show where they were making meth?
Walter White.
Walter White, the guy. Like, I don't know. Did you watch this video of the whole incident?
I did. I guess I didn't make that comparison.
The police officer looks exactly like Walter White. It freaked me out. I mean, it was a little bit spooky.
I mean, I know I keep bringing this up, but I think what happened was the adrenaline kind of took over, because once he pulled out his gun, the danger was gone. Right. The group of kids scattered. Yep. He had the one kid.
Yep.
There's no reason he couldn't have put that gun away before he tried to grab that kid with two hands.
Right.
The reason that gun even went off is because he was still holding it in his hand while he was trying to pull this kid over the bush.
Well, and it kind of happened at the same time as he was pulling the kid over the bush, and he was pulling the gun out.
Using his momentum to pull the kid, and tightened his grip. And...
The other thing, like, to kind of put yourself in his shoes, is that, like, you have an ongoing group of young adults, we'll even say. They're teenagers. And who's to say that one of those teenagers didn't have a gun on him?
Yeah, I'm not 100% positive on this, but I did see an argument that it looked like one of the kids might have been trying to pull something out of their pocket.
Right, and so, like, there you go. So does that validate his actions in a certain light?
If he saw it, absolutely.
Right, exactly. I mean, hell yeah. If I have a group of 20, 30 people and the group is growing, surrounding me, and I think I identify a weapon in this group, yeah, you need to get your firearm out.
Okay. But say you are in that situation. Yeah. Are you going to just kind of half-ass pull your gun out, or are you going to grab it with authority?
Well, and see the big issue there is that he was still trying to hold on to this kid at the same time.
Yeah, but we both just made the argument, like, the way he grabbed his gun looks kind of...
It definitely, it looked... There was issues. He was having issues for the most part. Overall, I honestly don't think that this guy, he probably should get a lecture about, people crossing his yard shouldn't be that big of a deal.
No. And who knows, if the kid did say that I'm going to kill you, then... yeah, I'll probably detain him. He did make a threat at a police officer or even just a citizen in general.
Right. Yep. And we don't know the atmosphere of this neighborhood either. So if it is actually a dangerous neighborhood, like, it kind of leans a little bit more towards his actions, But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think coming to a conclusion, I would say that the police force is good. There's a few adjustments that can be made, but overall, I think it functions well.
Yeah. Same here. I think that the police officers and the legal system, overall, it is working, and it works for the people for the most part, not against the people. And people need to kind of keep that in mind when they are posting things up on the internet, when they're criticizing them. That first off, they're humans, they're people too, and their jobs are already hard enough. We shouldn't be making their jobs any harder.
Absolutely not.
But I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys listening to our podcast. This one's not quite as long as what we were hoping it would be, but I hope that it served its purpose and that you come back and listen to us again. And definitely go and check out our website, www.blackholerhetoric.com. It should be in the description below. And
we also have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, we do.
It's BHR Podcast.
Yep. So just kind of check us out, and I hope that you guys follow our podcast. So thank you very much.